This episode of the Focus Action Results podcast is brought to you by Accelerate Performance, creators of the Focus Action Results course and the FAR Planner. Welcome to the podcast that promises you'll be much more productive with me, your host, Ralph Farquhar. Welcome to the Focus Action Results podcast, and in this episode we are tackling the subject of the one killer app that will improve your focus. That's right. There is one app that kills everything else. So let's find what that is. There are many productivity apps out there. I mean, just tons of them, right? So, just to name a few, there's things like, Evernote, Todoist, Asana, Dropbox. I mean, there are just loads of them. Okay, so before we get into what is the killer app, I think we probably ought to have a look at what some of the apps are that are available, and then we can just have a look at them. Now, this isn't supposed to be a rundown and a top 10 and, me kind of going, right, these are all the ones that you can, look at and take and make use of. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a selection because I think it is important to have a look at the apps that are out there that will provide you with the opportunity to get a little bit more focused and be a bit more productive. So let's go down a few of them. Now, this list, I haven't compiled this on my own. I've taken some of this from uk.pcmag.com. They've got a really good rundown. I've actually added some of my own, though, onto this because I think they've missed a few which are worth mentioning. In fact, they've missed probably the biggest one, the most important one from their list. It's still not the killer app, but they have missed one of the really big ones. So the question is, which one is that? So let's go through these, right? So hands up, any of you who knows about Apple shortcuts or uses Apple shortcuts. So, if you've got an Apple phone, you can configure it. There's an app called Shortcuts. Now, most people I know don't actually use it. But it can be brilliant because what you do is you effectively take the app and you can create shortcuts. Shortcuts like, for example, you can configure it to say, when I arrive at work, well, in the days that one went to an office, okay, clearly we're still sort of in COVID world now, but this is what you can do. You can go, when I arrive at work, turn my phone on to silent, right? It's a small thing. And how does it do it? Well, it will know by the GPS coordinates of where you've configured work, and then it will automatically put your phone on silent. Just one example, and you can configure it to do a whole load of other things. You can configure it to wake you up, and once the alarm goes off, you can configure it to, start your mindfulness app or something like that, or maybe you want to do that at the end of the day. You can configure loads of those things. So that goes in the category of making life more efficient. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to configure it up front and actually say, what is it that I want it to do? But it's there. It's part of your iPhone. It is free. So make use of it. And actually, I don't know very many people that use it. And I have to confess, I've not used it a great deal up to this point. But I think I will do in future. Right, so the next one, Evernote. I have sworn by Evernote for years. I pay for the premium version, which I think costs me something like $8 a month. There is a free version, so you don't have to pay anything. It's just that in the paid for version, you get things like the ability to search, for the ability to actually upload documents of all different types and varieties, like Word documents and PDFs and stuff like that. And it provides other things besides. Now, Evernote has been brilliant for me. There's a little web clipper, so that sits in your browser. So in my Chrome browser, I've got this little elephant, because that's the logo of Evernote. I've got the logo there, I just click on it, and any page that I'm on a website, clips that into Evernote. And I can say which category I want it to be in, which notebook I want it to be in, etc. If you're used to Microsoft, you may well be used to OneNote. Basically the same thing, except that OneNote is part of the Microsoft suite. I happen to prefer Evernote, and that may well be because I have used Evernote forever. And so I find that incredibly useful. It literally enables me to clip everything of interest in one place. The best thing about Evernote for me is that it enables, basically it indexes everything. That's another thing that I think is in the premium version, the $8 a month version. It indexes everything so that at the point at which I want to search for, I don't know, anything like podcasts or focus or action, it will look through every single thing within every document, not just what I've put in as notes, but in actually each of the documents, and it'll bring it back and return it as a result, which is fantastic for me. It saves so much time. And it also means that I know that there's one place that I go to because that's the one place that I've clipped everything. So I've talked about OneNote. Then there is Todoist. It's a brilliant to-do list. There are two versions. There's a free version, but you can also spend $36 per annum on it. And it means that you can really get your to-do list sorted, categorize things, make sure you're pushing things along. You can actually interact with other people as well, and assign to-do tasks to others who may well also have it. Right, so the next one on the list, Trello. So I don't know if you know about Trello, but Trello has these boards, and you can move things around between the boards. So you can set up a board for any topic you like. It can be a work topic, it can be a personal goal, it can be whatever you wish it to be. And you effectively then have these cards that you create on each of those boards where you detail what you want to do, by when, who's involved, what the actual detail is. And as you work on each of these cards, you can then move them around to different categories to say, right, this is something that I've started. You can then have another category that says, you know, you're midway through the process. You can then have another category which says that your action and activity there is done. And you move the cards between the boards, and it's a great visual way of managing your to-do list. A great way also to collaborate. So there's a free version, and there's a $12 or so per person per month version. And if you have the version which you pay for, that means that you can then collaborate with, anybody you like who has got another version similar to yours, which is also paid for. So it becomes a great tool for collaboration. Right, so looking at the next one, something called Rescue Time. What does it do? Enables you to rescue time. There you go. So there's a free version, but there's also a £9 per month version. And this is something that you install on your computer, on your browser, and it will know where you go, what app you use, when you're using it, for how long you use it, how long your breaks are between actually using apps on your computer. So if you want to know what you've been doing, when you've been doing it, it will tell you. There's a dashboard which shows you that. And then you can, knowing that information, because information is power, right? So if you actually know something, you can then work out what you do to change it. So if you're spending way too much time on Facebook when you should be actually taking action on some of the things that you're wanting to focus on, it'll tell you that. And it'll tell you how long you've been taking, it'll tell you how often you've been doing that, and you can make a conscious decision to do things differently. So once you know what you're doing, you can change that. So it's a great tool to enable you to rescue time and actually put more time back into doing the things that are going to move you along. Another thing in a similar vein is called Stay Focused. So stay focused without the E before the D, just stay focused but lose the E before the D. And it's free. It's a browser extension, and it blocks distracting websites. So you set a time and you set a duration and you say which websites it blocks during the time that you set it to block. So that's great. So you can actually, knowing from rescue time, for example, that you spent, 35 minutes idly browsing Twitter and another 45 minutes idly checking out, something on Facebook where somebody's posted their lunch, or the fact that they've, got some certificate for woodwork or something like that. Didn't really move you along. It was interesting, but it didn't move you along. Knowing that from rescue time means that you can configure Stay Focused to stop you from being able to get to Twitter or Facebook for certain periods of the day. and you're in control. You can configure them. Now, some people criticize Stay Focused because it is a browser extension in Chrome. If you're a bit sneaky, you can open Safari, and guess what? You can go onto Facebook or you can go onto Twitter and you can cheat the system. But frankly, why would you want to do that? If you're going to go to the trouble of setting your goals, being focused on those, and wanting to take action and actually really want to go and get your goals, why would you cheat the system? Configure Stay Focused and it will help you to stay focused. So that's another one. And the great thing about it, as I said, is it's free. Now there's a whole load of things which fit into the category of sort of work apps. So, you know, G Suite, so you've got your Gmail, you've got Google Docs, etc. Similarly, Microsoft 365, that includes Teams as a great collaboration tool, and OneNote, which we've spoken about before. And then there's Apple iWork, so the apps that are native on your Mac when you get it. Although I literally know no one who uses those. I'm sure they're brilliant, but it seems that most people gravitate towards a cloud-based environment of G Suite or Microsoft 365. But each to their own. So I'm not going to dive into those ones. You're probably using one or other or a multitude of those already. Let's look at emails. All right, how many of you receive emails and your email inbox just gets stuffed with things? And there's this big flashing, well, it's not flashing, but this big, if you're using a Mac, this big red thing that shows you that you've got 355 messages that you haven't read yet. And it's like, oh my God. And now, you know, an afternoon has gone by and now it's at 385 messages that you haven't read. And you're trying to stay on top of it. And you can't, because you've signed up to loads of newsletters in the past because you were interested in something. You know, somebody offered you a free something on their website, and so you gave your email address and they sent it to you, and then you get emails from them. And those emails are interesting. Some of them won't be. And you'll also get some spam, and you'll get some things that are not important. And then there are the things that come into your email inbox from your boss or your spouse or your children, where you think, actually, I want to know about those straight away. So there's something called SaneBox, as in to keep me sane. SaneBox, $7 a month, and what that will enable you to do is categorize automatically. It will learn, and then it will categorize the various emails that come in into different folders. So your inbox just contains the things that are important or urgent. The other stuff gets put into folders that you can look at later, or you can delete. One of the great things about a tool like this is that if it's putting all those newsletters into a folder that you can check out when you've got time, you can then go through that folder and deliberately go, do you know what, I want to keep receiving that and this and the other, but that one, I'm going to bin it. I want to delete that, I want to delete that. And you can then proactively go and say, right, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe. So you can manage the flow of information. But importantly, what it'll do, SaneBox will do, is to make sure that your inbox is manageable. So that's another great one to have. Right, so everybody these days is on Zoom calls or Teams calls or some kind of a video call. And that's great. And then you might go, do you know what, I want to record this call. And so you get a file at the end of the call. It's a 50-minute call that you've just had. There's a recording of it, which gives you the full technicolor of the video and the audio as well. And you say to yourself, do you know what? I might go back and listen to some of that. Hands up if you've ever had time to do that. I mean, genuinely, hands up. Have you gone back and gone, oh, do you know what? That was a really interesting conversation with Nadia and Dan. I think Nadia said something that I need to copy down that was sort of, I don't know, about halfway through. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the recording and I'm going to pull that up and I'm going to find it, etc. Chances are you don't have time, right? So is there a better way of managing that? The answer is there is, which is good. There's an app called Otter. It's otter.io. Now, there are a number of apps that are similar out there, but I think Otter is definitely one of the best. There's a free version. There's also one which is about $8 or $9 a month, and then there's one that's per user per month for an enterprise level, about $20. What is it? Well, what it does is it integrates with Zoom, and it effectively transcribes into words, into written text, what has been said. And the more you move up in terms of the amount you spend, the more it will then tag and recognize the different people that are speaking. And so it'll actually structure it for you. And it's really accurate. That then means you've got a transcription of that meeting. You can scan through and you can go, right, I'm going to find that bit in the middle. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? All right, Nadia said, bang, got it. Cut and paste, pull it into whatever it is you're working on. It'll take you, I don't know, 90 seconds to find a thing that you want to find, instead of taking you about, well, I don't know, 15 minutes to kind of load up the recording, go through it, find it, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got to type it yourself. So this is a real efficiency gain for you. Otter.io. Free version available, but you can spend a little bit of money. It's not a huge amount, but a little bit of money that enables you to do that with Zoom, but also enables you to pull other recorded material into it so that you can create transcriptions of anything from audio or video. Right, so in the business arena, you've got Zapier. It enables you to make zaps between different applications. This can really improve the productivity, because it effectively will take one application, and it's a little bit like the shortcuts we were talking about with the iPhone, right? So you configure it to say, when this happens, do that, right? So when somebody signs up to my email list, send them this document, put them into a workflow for project management or whatever it happens to be. Okay, so that is really good. There's a free version. Comes with limited number of the premium apps that you can integrate. So you would need to spend a little bit of money per month if you wanted to integrate some of their premium apps, or quite a lot of apps. But that's really good from a business perspective because it saves a boatload of time. Right, so now Asana. This is another collaborative app which enables you to manage projects and to-do lists. And the good thing about Asana is that it enables you to do this amongst teams as well. It's a really good app. It's free, although, as with all of these things, freemium model, there is a paid version, which I think is something about £13 or £14 per user per month. So it's quite a good one for that. Then you'll all have heard of Slack. Some of you may use it today. Slack is both brilliant and a danger. Right, in terms of being brilliant, it's great because you can have the ability to communicate and share, make sure everybody in an organization knows what's happening. They can collaborate on things easily. It integrates with so many different applications so that within just your Slack application, you can start a Zoom call, you can drop in a document from Dropbox, you can do all sorts of things. And in each of the channels in Slack, you've got the ability to collaborate and know what's going on and like things. It's a bit like social media meets business or communication tools. So that's great. But the more people you have in your community on Slack, the more interruptions you're going to get. And this is where I say it's dangerous. Because we, as goal getters, right, we want to focus on the things that are going to move us forwards. We want to take action on those, and we want to eliminate distractions. And getting pinged with messages constantly from everybody in the organization about everything is going to distract you. So if you're going to use Slack, make sure that you are using it in a way that is going to be consistent with your definition of how you're trying to work towards the goals that your company or your team or you as an individual are trying to hit. So it is both a brilliant thing, but it can be quite dangerous. So just work out how you're going to use it. Now there's a free version, you get 10 integrations, you get one-to-one voice and video calls as part of that. Then there is a paid version. It is about £5.50, something like that per person per month. and you get up to 15 participants collaborating on calls and videos, plus you get the ability to share your screen. So frankly, the free version is a great way of trialing it, but actually if you want to use it every day as your method of communication and sharing, and you want to be able to share your screen, you really do need to go for a paid version. And then you can go for a slightly more expensive one, which has got some more options and more admin type stuff that you can do with it. So that is my rundown of some apps which are going to make life more productive for you. The one app, which I think the list which I was reading from, which is effectively the uk.pcmag.com list, the one app that they have missed is Notion, right? So what is Notion? Notion is a collaboration app. It sits on your iPhone, it sits on Android, it sits on your desktop, it sits on the web, and it enables you to collaborate with people, and it enables you to do the tasks that a number of the apps that I've already mentioned to you already do. So, for example, Notion is a team wiki. If you want to create an environment where people are able to create knowledge base and share stuff around knowledge of something that's happening, you can create a team wiki. So that replaces apps that I haven't actually mentioned, but you could be using, such as Confluence or GitHub Wiki. It's like the ability to create your own Wikipedia, but you're doing it within Notion. Then there's the element which is around projects and tasks, right? So Notion means you can eliminate the need to use Trello. You don't need to use Asana. You don't need to use things like Jira from a ticketing perspective, right? Because the functionality of Trello and the functionality of Asana are inbuilt into Notion. Brilliant. And then you've got the notes and the docs bit of Notion, which enables you to actually eliminate Evernote. And you can eliminate and replace Google Docs. Why? Because you've got that functionality in Notion. So essentially, what you can do is take one app, which there's a free version, you get unlimited pages and blocks, and then you can share with 5 guests and sync across devices, or there's a £4 per month personal pro edition with unlimited files, unlimited guests, and version history, which is quite an important thing. And then you go up to the $8 per month per user, which is for a team, where you get an unlimited number of team members, you can collaborate, and there are advanced permissions and stuff like that. So in one app, you can actually get rid of others. Like, you don't need to pay the $13.49 per month for Asana. You don't need to pay the $8 a month for Evernote, for example. You don't need to pay the $12.50 a month for Trello. So you're becoming more efficient by using one app rather than 3 or 4 or 5. And you're also saving yourself money, so what's not to like? It is a great app to bring everything together. Now, you can still make use of other things, and I would definitely recommend utilising things like Otter.io or Sanebox, or you don't even need to use the to-do list app that I was talking about before, because you can put your to-do lists into Notion. So lots of things that you basically can consolidate into one. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to an app that you can use on a daily basis, Notion is the thing to center the rest of what you're doing around, which is a good thing. But, and here's the but, you need to invest some time into understanding how Notion works. You need to set it up. You need to make sure that it becomes part of your daily process. Now that is going to take time. That's going to take a bit of an investment in thinking about what are the notebooks you want to set up, what are the to-do list formats that you want to have, what are the kind of doc formats that you want to have, etc. So you need to put a little bit of thought into that. But if you structure it once, and then you make it a habit to use it every day, it's great because it becomes the one place and the one app that you go to for your to-do list, for the documents, for the web clipping, because they also have a web clipper, just like I mentioned that Evernote does. So you can clip things into notebooks and into categories. It enables you to collaborate fully on projects, etc., etc. But it will take a bit of time. So if you do want to go down this route, by all means, evaluate them all, right? Just because I say that I think that Notion is something that means you just don't need to use 4 or 5 or 6 other different apps, doesn't mean that you might not want to. But if we are trying to drive towards being more efficient so that you spend less time doing things that aren't adding value, so that you've got more time to spend focused on the actions that move you forwards towards your goal, then I would strongly recommend eliminating 4 or 5 or 6 apps and just going for the one which enables you to do all of those things. Right. So there we have it. Now we've got on the line, we've got somebody who's called in. I believe it is somebody called Francois. Francois, are you there?
Hello, yes, this is Francois. I just wanted to say that it's very, very interesting, the stuff that you are talking about and these applications, but your title is a little misleading because you have said that you are talking about the one killer app for focus. And it is about the focus that I want to look at. Whereas you're talking here about productivity in the applications, I want to understand how to focus. So could you have a look at that?
Yeah, no problem at all, Francois. You are absolutely right. So let's think about focus. What is that one killer app? Paper. Yes, you heard me right, it's paper. And more specifically, handwriting. So I know you're going to tell me, you're going to write in. You're going to write in, you're going to complain, you're going to go, yeah, but paper's not an app. I thought you were talking about an app. Look, we've run through all those apps so far. So now what we're talking about is paper, right? Before there were computers, you could have a look and you could say a piece of paper is an app. It's the application of your hand with a pen onto a piece of paper. So in my world and my thinking, it qualifies as an app, right? So what is it about handwriting and why do I say that this is the killer app to beat all other apps? Well, let's look at handwriting for a moment. When you pick up a pen and you write something on a piece of paper, you are doing what's called cursive writing, as opposed to typewriting, where you're tapping on a keyboard. And those two things, cursive writing and typing, use two distinct processes in the brain. Okay, so somebody called Longcamp in 2005 and 2006, and then Alonso in 2015, did a bunch of research where they looked at the process of cursive writing. And what they could see from this research was that it requires finer motor neuron coordination to create the letters, whereas typewriting uses less kinesthetic information. Right, we'll come back to kinesthetic in a moment because that's quite important. Okay, so let me just read you, I'm going to read you a paragraph from a report which was pulled together, some primary research in frontierin.org on the 28th of July this year, 2020. And I'll just read this through. One paragraph I'll go through really quickly so you can kind of hear some of the science behind it. And what it says is, in general, brain oscillations are interactions between the thalamus and the cortex and can be viewed as generated by changes in one or more parameters that control oscillations in neuronal networks. That's Putschela and Lopez da Silva in 1999. The complex interactions and the following distinctive frequencies are, in short, reflecting different cognitive processes. Klimesh in 1994 and Behrens and Horner in 2017. At the neural level, Cortical oscillations have been found to reflect periodically membrane voltages that interact by synaptic transmission, reflecting a pattern of depolarization and hyperpolarization that enables or disables effective translation of incoming synaptic input into postsynaptic action potential firing. Froelich, 2016. In other words, the frequencies of the following oscillations depend on the individual neurons and the strength of the action potentials. Lopez da Silva, 1991, Singer, 1993. This temporal organization of neural firing is of high importance and is also thought to be critical for the formation of long-term memories in the hippocampus. Behrens and Horner, 2017. Right, so most of that probably, or certainly, over my head. I mean, what I get from that is that there's lots of science, there is lots of research that's gone into this, and effectively what it's saying is different patterns within the brain, different ways that neurons are firing in order to put different patterns and memories into the hippocampus. So it is clear that writing by hand actually fires off different bits of the brain. Now, if you think about this, if you know somebody who is a whiz at touch typing, I'm not. I mean, I can type quite quickly, but I kind of still have to think about where I'm putting my fingers. But if somebody is a really good touch typer, they will be able to effectively touch type a document or listen to an audio and turn this into written text pretty quickly. And they'll be able to do it without necessarily knowing what they have been typing. Okay, because it is about an automatic process of putting your fingers down on the keys, and that is a way of putting it into the computer clearly, and you basically get it done. But they're not being forced to think about the words that they're typing. Okay, take somebody who's handwriting instead. You know, if you put a pen in your hand and you actually write, you are the one that is creating the letter. You're the one that's creating the symbol on the page. And as you do so, because you're having to put in effort, you're having to, I mean, may not be a huge amount of effort to most of us once we've learned how to write, but because you're putting effort into creating those letters, it takes a little bit longer. The brain is having to take a stroke upwards and around and down and put a dot and a cross and all of those sorts of things on it. It takes a little bit of time, and it enables it to go into the brain better. Right, remember that passage that I read out? It puts things into the longer term memory in the hippocampus just by writing by hand. Okay, now also think about this. When you are writing notes in a meeting, many people will sit there on their iPads or on their computers. Actually, it's a bit of a rapport killer if somebody's sitting opposite you with their iPad or their laptop open, that you're talking to them and they're just tapping away on their computer. You're not quite sure whether they're browsing Facebook or whether they're writing an email to their family or friends, or they're sending an instant message saying, God, this meeting is so boring and I just can't wait for it to be over. Now, the reality is they may well be taking notes, right? But it kind of kills the rapport. In any case, as they're taking notes on their computer, it may be getting stored on their hard drive, so that it's there and accessible later, but they're going through a process in their brains, a little bit like the copy typist, who's doing this automatically, and they're not really putting this information into their own brains. They're putting it through themselves, through their hands, into the keyboard, and then onto the screen, into their hard drives. If you are taking notes by hand, it's an entirely different process, because while somebody can type really quickly, and they may well be able to type at a similar speed to the speed at which somebody is speaking, you cannot write by hand at that same speed. So you're actually having to do a couple of things. One is you're using your hand, you're using your brain to create the letters, which uses and fires off those different neural pathways, which means that it actually gets retained by your brain better than if you were typing. The second thing you're having to do, because you can't write at the same speed as somebody speaking, your brain is having to summarize in real time. It's having to listen to what's coming in. It's having to make sense of what's coming in. It's having to summarize that. Then it's telling your fingers and your hand what cursive strokes to write on the piece of paper. And that process means that the information that you're receiving with somebody speaking to you is effectively being filtered, assimilated, structured. It means that your brain is creating neural pathways to actually embed it in itself. So you will remember it more. And then as you put it down on paper, you're using those same neural pathways that we were talking about before. Okay. So there is evidence, lots of evidence, and it worries me, right? Because when I was at school, there weren't any computers, right? I'm that old. The internet hadn't been born. If we want to do computing, we had to go to the computer lab and we had to plug in a BBC computer. This was, the first computers were sort of ZX Spectrums and stuff like that, and then the BBC computer. And you had to go to a special room so that you could, do stuff on a computer. So, of course, what we did was we wrote all of our notes by hand. Well, my kids today are doing everything on a computer. They sit at school. One of them works on an iPad, and it's like, two-finger kind of typing on an iPad. Another one works on a computer, so at least there is the touch typing thing going on. But very infrequently do they do their homework handwritten. So it worries me because there's a huge amount of study that's gone on, scientific study where they've looked at groups of children and just about how important it is that handwriting is something that creates the ability to learn better, right? And anyway, there's nothing I can do about it. This is the way that schools have gone. Everybody's very tech savvy, but it worries me that you're going to have generations of people that haven't really formed the art of pulling together the ability to listen, to summarize, to structure, and then to put those things down on paper by hand and retain them and be able to think about them and manipulate those ideas in many different ways, simply because they've been doing this on a computer or an iPad. But anyway, as I say, I can't fix that. But you can fix it when it comes to putting your goals down, right, and working out what you want to do and how you want to do it. And so this is why I advocate your primary place that you put your thoughts down is on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, is actually to scribble down your thoughts, to create a mind map, to actually structure your thinking, and then to put your goals down on paper. I'm fine if you then want to take them and use Notion or Asana or Todoist or any of those sorts of things as your digital to-do list. Not a problem at all. And in fact, I use both. I told you before I use Evernote, right? And I'm moving things across to Notion because I just think it's better. So I use digital as well, but I always start with paper because it really helps to structure thought. You can make mistakes, you can cross out. By doing that, you then think of something else, you draw something, you're writing it by hand, it's firing those neural pathways, it's making you think about what to do, it's putting it in to your brain so that think about it like this, it's you creating your goals in a way that those goals become part of you. Not just goals that you put onto a computer or onto a digital app, and then once you've done that, you've tapped away with your two thumbs on your iPhone and it's now in there and it's like, oh, gone and forgotten until you open up your app and you go, oh, crap, I didn't do those things that I said I was going to. If you've written them by hand, they become part of you. And that is a really important part of setting goals. So, as I say, I advocate using paper and a pen. Now, as part of what I do at Accelerate Performance, we have created the Focus Action Results course and the FAR Planner, the Focus Action Results Planner, which is a physical book that lasts a quarter, right? 3 months. And in that, you physically write your annual goals, your quarterly goals, all the process steps that you need to take to be able to actually hit those goals. Because there's no point in just saying, well, here's my goal, and then not actually working out what you're going to need to do in order to hit those goals. So you actually write all of those down by hand, and then you can track your good habits, you can track your bad habits, and then how you're replacing bad habits with good habits. And that's one of the episodes that we'll talk in depth about good and bad habits at some point through the series. And the FAR planner also has a significant portion of it, it's like 2/3 of it, which is dedicated to being able to write handwritten notes. I don't know, I mean, not everybody is like me, clearly. Some people prefer to do it digitally, but I see a lot of people that walk around between meetings, walk around at home, and they've got a book or they've got a notepad and they write things in, they jot them down. People like to write stuff down. So the FAR planner provides the ability to write your goals down by hand so that you're firing the right neural processes, etc., to make sure that the goals become part of you. And then it enables you to write the notes by hand as you go through the quarter and then keep track of what you're doing. So, the one killer app for being focused and getting towards the goals that you want to achieve is paper and a pen and your hand and your brain filtering, thinking, cursively writing script on a piece of paper. That's the killer app that will make you more successful and more likely to hit your goals. So, as I said, happy for you to use any and all of the other apps as well, though I would caution you to use as few of them as you can get away with, because the more apps you use, the more money you spend, the more time you have to spend, the more things you have to think of, the more you have to configure, the more you have, etc., etc., right? So yes, use digital as well as analog, but I would always go to analog first, because it will be the thing that makes the biggest difference to whether or not you can stick to your goals, manage through them, and then hit them at the end. So that has been the second episode of the Focus Action Results podcast. I hope some of this has been useful, and I look forward to speaking to you again on the next episode. Thanks a lot for listening, and remember, do subscribe and do forward this and share this with as many people as you know who could benefit from listening to some of the advice, some of the things that we talk about and that I'm sharing. So subscribe and share it with other people, and thank you for listening, and speak to you next time. I hope that was helpful for you today and you enjoyed listening to the Focus Action Results podcast. If it was either helpful or enjoyable, or heaven forfend both, please subscribe, leave feedback, share with friends and family, and tweet it loud with the hashtag Focus Action Results podcast.